silence of space was absolute. A void so profound it seemed to swallow all sound, all thought. Yet, within that silence, something stirred. A faint, rhythmic pulse, like the heartbeat of a dying star. It was the distress signal, weak and desperate, reaching out across the cosmos. A plea for salvation. A whisper in the dark. And humanity had answered. The fleet had arrived in orbit around the alien world, a flotilla of sleek, black ships bristling with weaponry and technology that gleamed coldly under the distant light of a red sun. The flagship, Erebus, hung at the center like a predator poised to strike, its hull scarred from battles long past, but still radiating an aura of unyielding strength. Inside, the air was thick with tension, the kind that seeped into your bones and made your skin crawl. Captain Elias Voss stood on the bridge, his gloved hands clasped behind his back as he stared out at the planet below. It was a desolate sphere, its surface marred by jagged scars and swirling storms of ash. The alien species, the Threxil, had called it home once. But now it was little more than a graveyard. Their cities lay in ruins, their people scattered or dead. And somewhere down there, lurking in the shadows, were the hunters. Voss's voice was low, measured, as he addressed his crew. "Status report." "Scans are incomplete," said Lieutenant Harper, her fingers dancing over the console. "The atmosphere is dense with particulate matter. Makes it hard to get a clear read. But, sir, I'm picking up movement. Lots of it." "Define lots," Voss said, his tone sharp. Harper hesitated, her brow furrowing. "Hundreds. Maybe thousands. They're concentrated in the northern hemisphere, near what looks like the remains of a major city." The captain's jaw tightened. He didn't need to ask what they were. The hunters. Humanity's first encounter with them had been brief, brutal, and unforgettable. They were unlike any enemy Earth had ever faced, adaptive, relentless, and utterly devoid of mercy. If the Threxil's distress signal had taught them anything, it was that the hunters left no survivors. A crackle of static interrupted his thoughts, followed by a voice, alien, trembling, and barely intelligible through the translator. "Humans, you came. You must leave. It is too late. They are here." Voss turned toward the comms officer. "Patch me through." The connection stabilized, and the image of a Threxil appeared on the screen. Its form was insectoid, with chitinous plates covering its body and multifaceted eyes that reflected the dim light of the bridge. It looked frail, its movements jerky and uncertain, as if every breath was a struggle. "This is Captain Elias Voss of the United Earth Fleet," he said, his voice steady. "We received your distress signal. We're here to help." The Threxil's mandibles clicked together in what might have been a grimace. "Help? No. There is no help. Only death. You do not understand what you have brought upon yourselves." "We understand enough," Voss replied. "We've fought them before." The alien let out a sound that could have been laughter or despair. "Fought? You cannot fight them. You can only run. And even then they will find you. They always find you." The line went dead. For a moment, the bridge was silent, save for the hum of machinery and the faint thrum of the ship's engines. Then Harper spoke, her voice tight. "Sir, we've got incoming. Multiple bogies, closing fast." "How many?" Voss asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. "Too many." The captain's gaze hardened. "All hands to battle stations. Prepare for engagement." Alarms blared throughout the ship, a cacophony of sound that sent adrenaline surging through every crew member. The lights dimmed, replaced by the pulsing red glow of combat readiness. In the hangar bays, pilots scrambled into their fighters, the roar of engines filling the air as the ships powered up. Marines donned their armor, their faces grim beneath their visors. This was what they had trained for, what they had signed up for. But knowing that didn't make it any easier. The first wave hit them like a tidal force. The hunters' ships were sleek and organic, like living creatures forged from metal and malice. They moved with terrifying speed, weaving through the human fleet's defensive fire with an almost predatory grace. When they struck, it was with surgical precision, tearing through shields and hulls as if they were paper. On the bridge of the Erebus, Voss barked orders, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Focus fire on the lead vessels! Don't let them break the line!" The ship shuddered as another blast rocked its hull, the lights flickering briefly before stabilizing. Harper's voice was strained as she reported, "Shields at 60%. Hull integrity holding, for now." "Reroute power from non-essential systems," Voss commanded. "Keep those shields up." Outside, the battle raged on. Human fighters swarmed around the larger ships, engaging the hunters in a deadly dance of fire and steel. Explosions lit up the darkness, brief flashes of light that illuminated the carnage before fading back into the void. For every hunter ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place, their numbers endless and overwhelming. In the midst of the chaos, a new sound emerged, a low, guttural growl that seemed to reverberate through the very fabric of space. It wasn't coming from the ships. It was deeper, more primal, as if the universe itself was groaning under the weight of something ancient and terrible. Harper's face went pale as she studied her console. "Sir, I'm detecting a massive energy signature. It's coming from the planet." "What kind of energy signature?" Voss demanded. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice shaking. "But it's big, really big." Before he could respond, the main view screen flickered and changed. The image of the planet filled the screen, its surface writhing as if alive. Cracks began to appear, glowing with an eerie, pulsating light. And then, with a soundless explosion, something emerged. It was enormous, dwarfing even the largest of the human ships. Its form was amorphous, shifting and changing as if it couldn't decide what shape to take. Tendrils of dark energy writhed around it, lashing out at anything that came too close. It was a thing of nightmares, a manifestation of pure, unrelenting hunger. The hunters fell back, their ships retreating as if in fear. For the first time, they seemed vulnerable, almost afraid. "What the hell is that?" someone whispered. Voss didn't answer. He couldn't. His mind was racing, trying to process what he was seeing. This wasn't just a threat. This was something else entirely. Something beyond comprehension. The Threxil's warning echoed in his mind. "You do not understand what you have brought upon yourselves." The creature, or whatever it was, turned its attention toward the fleet. The growl deepened, becoming a roar that seemed to shake the very stars, and then it attacked. Energy beams lanced out from its tendrils, carving through ships with horrifying ease. The Erebus shook violently as one of the beams grazed its shields, the impact sending crew members sprawling. Sparks flew from damaged consoles, and the acrid smell of burning electronics filled the air. "Return fire!" Voss shouted. "Hit it with everything we've got!" The fleet unleashed a barrage of missiles and energy weapons, their combined firepower lighting up the void. but it was like throwing pebbles at a hurricane. The creature absorbed the attacks, its form rippling but otherwise unharmed. It retaliated with devastating force, decimating entire squadrons in seconds. On the bridge, Harper's voice was frantic. "Sir, we can't hold this position. We need to fall back." "No," Voss said firmly. "If we retreat, it'll follow us. We have to stop it here." "But how?" she asked, desperation creeping into her tone. "Nothing we're doing is working." He didn't have an answer. All he knew was that they couldn't afford to fail. If this thing reached Earth, a sudden thought struck him. The energy signature. The way the hunters had reacted. Whatever this creature was, it was connected to the planet. Maybe, just maybe, it could be stopped. "Harper," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Can you pinpoint the source of that energy signature?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I think so. It's coming from deep beneath the planet's surface. Some kind of structure." "Good. Get me a strike team. We're going down there." The bridge crew stared at him in shock, but he didn't waver. This was their only chance. If they could destroy the source, maybe they could weaken the creature. Maybe they could survive. As the shuttle descended toward the planet, the battle continued above, the fleet fighting desperately to buy them time. The surface was a hellscape, the air thick with ash and the ground littered with the remnants of a civilization that had been utterly annihilated. The ruins loomed like specters, their broken forms casting long shadows in the dim light. The strike team moved cautiously, their weapons at the ready. Every step felt like a gamble, the oppressive atmosphere pressing down on them like a physical weight. And then they saw it, the entrance to the structure, a gaping maw that seemed to beckon them forward. Inside, the air was colder, the walls lined with strange, pulsating veins that glowed faintly. The deeper they went, the louder the sound became. A low, rhythmic thrum that resonated in their chests. It was the heartbeat of the planet, of the creature. And it was getting stronger. They reached the core, a massive chamber dominated by a pulsating orb of light. It was beautiful and terrible. A thing of raw, unbridled power. And it was alive. Voss raised his weapon, his finger hovering over the trigger. "Set the charges," he ordered. "We end this now." But as they worked, the walls began to shift, the veins pulsing faster. The creature knew they were there, and it wasn't going to let them leave. The final moments were a blur of chaos and terror, the team fighting desperately to complete their mission as the structure came alive around them. When the charges detonated, the explosion was blinding, a searing light that consumed everything in its path. Above, the creature let out a deafening roar, its form convulsing as the energy sustaining it was ripped away. The fleet seized the opportunity, unleashing one final devastating assault. This time, the creature faltered. And then, with a sound like the shattering of worlds, it was gone. The survivors returned to the Erebus, battered but victorious. The cost had been high, the losses staggering, but they had won. For now. As the fleet regrouped in the aftermath of the battle, the silence that followed was not one of peace, but of exhaustion. The bridge of the Erebus was a mess of flickering consoles, smoke curling from damaged panels, and crew members slumped in their seats, too drained to speak. Captain Elias Voss stood at the center, his face shadowed by the dim emergency lighting. His uniform was torn, his left arm cradled against his side, where blood seeped through the fabric, but his eyes remained fixed on the view screen. The planet below was no longer writhing with malevolent energy. Its surface was still and dark, its atmosphere choked with ash and debris. Whatever had been buried deep within it, the source of the hunter's power was gone now, obliterated by the strike team's sacrifice. And with it, the monstrous entity that had nearly annihilated them. But the victory felt hollow. "Damage report," Voss said, his voice hoarse. Lieutenant Harper, her face streaked with soot and sweat, glanced up from her console. "Shields are offline. Hull integrity is holding at 40%. Weapons systems are barely functional. We've lost 6 ships entirely, sir. 4 more are critically damaged. Casualty reports are still coming in." Voss closed his eyes for a moment, letting the weight of the numbers settle over him. Thousands of lives lost, ships reduced to drifting wreckage, and Earth's fleet, their last line of defense, crippled. He exhaled slowly, forcing himself to focus. There would be time to grieve later, if they survived long enough to grieve. "Any sign of the hunters?" he asked. Harper shook her head. "No, sir. Their ships scattered after the creature fell. It's like they're retreating." "Or regrouping," Commander Lynn said grimly, stepping forward. Her uniform was as battered as Voss's, her usually sharp features softened by fatigue. "We can't assume this is over. Not yet." Voss nodded. She was right. The hunters were relentless, and if they had learned anything from this encounter, it was that these creatures didn't simply give up. They adapted, they evolved, and they always came back. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts, drawing his attention to the comms station. The officer there, Ensign Malik, looked up with wide eyes. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the Threxil." Voss straightened, ignoring the pain in his ribs. "Put it through." The screen flickered, and the image of the surviving Threxil appeared. It was the same alien who had warned them before, though now it looked even more fragile, its chitinous body marred by cracks and burns. Behind it, the ruins of its once great civilization stretched into the distance, a haunting reminder of what the hunters had wrought. "You survived," the Threxil said, its voice rasping through the translator. There was something in its tone that might have been awe, or perhaps disbelief. "You destroyed the seed." "The seed," Voss repeated, frowning. The alien inclined its head. "The heart of the hive, the source of their strength. It is ancient, older than my people, older than yours. It falls from the stars, burrows into worlds, and consumes them from within. The hunters are its children, its servants. Without it, they are weakened." "Weakened isn't the same as defeated," Lynn interjected, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "They're still out there, still a threat." The Threxil clicked its mandibles in agreement. "Yes, but you have done what no other has. You have struck a blow against them, a wound they will not soon forget." Voss's jaw tightened. "And what about your people? Are there any others left?" The alien hesitated, its multifaceted eyes reflecting the dim light of the bridge. "Perhaps. Scattered. Hiding. But our world is dead. There's nothing left for us here." For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of the Threxil's words hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of what humanity could face if the hunters ever reached Earth. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for existence itself. "You're welcome to join us," Voss said. "Finally, if there are survivors, we'll take them aboard. We'll get you somewhere safe." The Threxil tilted its head, studying him. "Safe," it repeated, as if testing the word. "There is no safety. Not while the hunters live. But we will come. Perhaps together we can delay the inevitable. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence once more. Voss turned to Lynn, his expression unreadable. Make the arrangements, and get me a secure channel to Fleet Command. They need to know what we're dealing with. Lynn nodded, already moving to carry out his orders. Around them, the crew began to stir, their movements slow but purposeful. Repairs needed to be made, lives needed to be saved. And plans needed to be forged, for the war was far from over. As Voss stared out at the ruined planet below, a thought gnawed at the edges of his mind. The hunters had been terrifying enough, but the creature they had faced today, the Seed, was something else entirely. Something older. Something worse. And if there was one, how many more were out there? The faint hum of the ship's engines filled the air, a steady rhythm that seemed almost comforting in its familiarity. But beneath it, Voss could still hear the echoes of the creature's roar, reverberating through the void like a warning. This wasn't just a battle. It wasn't even a war. It was a reckoning. And humanity had only just begun to understand the scale of what it had unleashed. The bridge of the Erebus was quiet now, save for the faint crackle of damaged systems and the low murmur of crew members tending to their stations. Captain Elias Voss stood motionless at the center, his gaze fixed on the ruined planet below. The adrenaline that had carried him through the battle was fading, leaving behind a hollow ache in his chest, a mix of exhaustion, grief, and something darker. Dread. Captain, Commander Lynn's voice broke the silence, her tone subdued but urgent. Fleet Command is online. They're waiting for your report. Voss didn't respond immediately. His eyes lingered on the jagged surface of the alien world, its scars still glowing faintly from the destruction they had wrought. He could almost feel the weight of the dead pressing against him, human and Threxil alike. How many lives had been lost today? How many more would be lost tomorrow? Finally, he turned away, his expression hardening. Patch them through. Lynn nodded, and moments later, the main view screen flickered to life. The image of Admiral Harlow appeared, her face stern and lined with the weariness of someone who had seen too many battles. Behind her, the command center of Fleet HQ buzzed with activity, officers moving briskly between consoles as data streamed across holographic displays. Captain Voss, Harlow said, her voice clipped. We've been monitoring your situation. What's your status? Critical, Voss replied bluntly. The fleet's taken heavy losses. 6 ships destroyed, 4 more barely operational. Casualties are significant. He paused, his jaw tightening. But the mission was successful. The Seed has been destroyed. Harlow's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes. Relief, perhaps, or maybe just the briefest reprieve from the crushing weight of command. And the hunters? Scattered, Voss said. For now. But they'll regroup. We've bought ourselves some time, but not much. The Admiral leaned forward slightly, her gaze piercing. Tell me about the Seed. What did you find down there? Voss hesitated, the memory of the pulsating orb flashing in his mind. He could still feel the oppressive energy it had radiated, the way it seemed to burrow into his thoughts, whispering promises of power and destruction. It was alive, he said finally. A living entity, buried deep beneath the planet's surface. The Threxil called it the heart of the Hive, the source of the hunter's strength. Destroying it weakened them, but he trailed off, unsure how to put his fears into words. But what? Harlow pressed. Voss met her gaze, his voice low. I don't think it was unique. If there's one seed, there could be others. And if that's true, this isn't just a war against the hunters. It's a war against whatever created them. The Admiral's expression darkened. She leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers as she considered his words. Do you have any evidence to support that theory? Not yet, Voss admitted. But the Threxil might. We've recovered survivors, what's left of them anyway. They've agreed to share what they know. Harlow nodded slowly. Good. Get whatever intel you can out of them. If there are more seeds out there, we need to find them before the hunters do. And then what? Voss asked, his tone sharper than he intended. Even if we find them, how do we fight something like that? You saw what it took to destroy this one. We threw everything we had at it, and we barely made it out alive. We adapt, Harlow said, firmly. Just like we always have. Humanity didn't claw its way out of the dirt to be wiped out by some ancient monstrosity. We'll find a way, Captain. We always do. Voss wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that humanity's ingenuity and resilience would be enough to overcome whatever horrors lay ahead. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were fighting a losing battle. That the universe was far more hostile and unforgiving than they had ever imagined. Understood, Admiral, he said finally. I'll send a full report once we've debriefed the Threxil. See that you do, Harlow replied. And, Captain, good work out there. You saved lives today. Don't forget that. The screen went dark, leaving Voss alone with his thoughts. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his sweat-dampened hair. Good work. The words rang hollow in his ears. Yes, they had won a battle. But at what cost? And how long until the next one? Sir? Harper's voice drew his attention. She looked up from her console, her expression uncertain. We're receiving another transmission. It's encrypted. Origin unknown. Voss frowned. Can you trace it? Harper shook her head. No, sir, but it's directed specifically at us. Whoever sent it knows we're here. Put it through, Voss ordered, his gut tightening with unease. The screen flickered again, but this time there was no image, only darkness. A moment later, a voice emerged from the speakers, distorted and mechanical, as if filtered through layers of static. Humanity, it said, the word drawn out like a hiss. You should not have interfered. Voss felt a chill run down his spine. Who is this? He demanded. Identify yourself. The voice ignored him, continuing in its eerie monotone. You think you have won. You think you have struck a blow against the Hive. But you have only awakened what sleeps. The seed was but a fragment, a shadow of the true power that lies beyond your understanding. The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances, the tension in the room palpable. Voss clenched his fists, his mind racing. Was this some kind of hunter trick? Or something worse? You will not survive what comes next, the voice said. None of you will. The stars themselves will burn, and your worlds will crumble to ash. This is not a warning. It is a promise. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Lynn stepped forward, her expression grim. Well, she said dryly, that's ominous. Voss didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the darkened screen, his mind replaying the voice's words over and over. You have only awakened what sleeps. Sir? Harper prompted hesitantly. What do we do now? Voss straightened, his shoulders squaring as he pushed the fear aside. There was no time for doubt. Not now. Not ever. We prepare, he said firmly. If there are more seeds out there, we find them. If there's something worse coming, we face it head on. Whatever it takes, we protect Earth. We protect humanity. His words hung in the air, a declaration of defiance against the darkness that loomed on the horizon. Around him, the crew began to stir, their resolve hardening in the face of the unknown. They had survived this battle. They would survive the next. Because that was what humanity did. They endured. They fought. And no matter how many times the universe tried to snuff them out, they refused to go quietly. As the Erebus limped away from the ruined planet, its engines flickering against the backdrop of the stars, Voss allowed himself a single, fleeting moment of hope. The road ahead would be long and perilous, but they weren't beaten yet. And as long as there was breath in his lungs, he would make damn sure they never would be.